Foster, and today we're talking about Spiritism. And I want to thank everyone for coming and joining us today. And before we begin, let's have a short prayer. Dear Jesus, please help all of us open our hearts and allow us to bring in our good, civilized feelings and emotions and responses. Please fill us with love, fraternity, charity, and honesty in our daily duties and tasks that we go through, and help us become a beacon of light for others who see us as a path toward the light, toward the spirit world, and toward eventual purity, and to be pure spirits. Amen. Well, today is March 1st, 2022, and we are on chapter 11, the home of the Assyrian. Now, the Assyrian is a high spirit that they're going to go visit his house. He's the one that gave when the spirit who psychographed, who dictated this to the medium who psychographed. Uh, he helped in this big auditorium, help a lot of these sleeping people who were kind of tortured and misshapen. He helped them realize themselves, get out of their problems, become whole again, wake up. So now they're going to go to his house. Now, this is going to be able to show you what it's like of a home in the spirit world. Now, before I begin on that, if you would like to understand Spiritism, understand how I am interpreting this, I would recommend that you read the Spirit's book, codified by Allan Kardec in 1850s under the leadership of the Spirit of Truth, as commanded and replied to us by Jesus Christ in the New Testament. I will send you a consoler, a spirit of truth, to tell you more. I'm paraphrasing. So you can get his book, type in Allan Kardec space PDF and any search engine, and you'll find the Spirit's book for free. You'll also find it on my YouTube channel. Go to my playlist section, go to the playlist, the Spirit's book, and I have every chapter in in audio form where I read the whole Spirit's book. I also have it so you can download it on nwspiritism.com in MP3 and in audible format. The other book you can download for free is my free PDF, Spiritism 101, The Third Revelation. It's available in English and in French. And if you don't want it in PDF, it's available in Kindle for 99 cents and in paperback and in audible format. So hopefully this will show you that the basic premises of Spiritism is karma, reincarnation. You're a spirit, you live forever. You go from one life to another life in the quest to become a better person, to transform your character, take out your primitive emotions and replace them with more advanced emotions, because you go through all these trials and tribulations on earth because thought is action in the spirit world. And someday you're going to have a lot of power to help a lot of people. But before you're allowed to do that, you have to have mental discipline. That's why we're on earth, is to get that mental discipline. Okay, let's begin with chapter 11, the home of the Assyrian. My friend's remark threw a shade of depression over my newly born enthusiasm. He was talking about it. His enthusiasm was, now after he's seen all this, he really wants to go back to earth and say, look, people, your ideas of the spirit world were wrong. Heaven's wonderful, right? These things that they tell you is not exactly true. So, and started a review of probabilities in my mind, which rendered me indifferent for the moment to attempt to change their theme. But a second endeavor aroused me to a consciousness of the panorama which lay before me, and succeeded, for the present at least, in putting an end to any feeling of gloom. I have said that my first impressions of Marie's home was that it offered every faculty, but by its ever-varying employments, for a weaning heart from sorrow. That's the woman he went to that is recovering from staying, I think, almost 12 years, 20 years, I can't remember, many years in the lower zone because she felt guilty by taking the husband of her best friend. But the idea was only an abstract one, as neither those surroundings nor yet the more beautiful grounds in which I had met Kushna at the home of the rest had constantly brought before my mind the question of manual labor in this new life. But the time for this had now come, and a fresh surprise carried my mind and inquiries away in another direction. So at this stage, he doesn't know that thought is action. He sees all these beautiful things, and he naturally, as someone coming from the physical world, believes that, well, someone must have created this. There had to be who's the gardeners, who's the architect, where's the construction people, right? Let's carry on. We were standing upon the crest of a mountain, one of a chain curving itself around a valley sufficiently picturesque to inspire a poet or artist with a dream of Eden. Between the hills at the farther end, a silver stream fell in a series of lostly cascades into the plain, which, thus divided into an almost equal portions, was enhanced in beauty by the crystal presence of the majestic river. One feature presented particularly attracted my attention and led me to inquire whether art had not been called to the assistance of nature to produce the pleasing result. Near the center of the valley, the course of the river was suddenly diverted to the right and left for the purposes of forming an island, perhaps about a mile in extent, which made a splendid platform or foundation for the extensive palace or mansion, which was the principal object of attraction. So here we have is a mansion in a beautiful scenery, which seems to him to be, quite like this has to be artificial. How can it be so perfect? So now we'll see. You are quite right, said Kushna, in answer to my inquiries. The stream has been at some time turned aside for the purpose of forming the island. But you don't mean to tell me there's such thing as manual labor in heaven? Is it not a perfect place as far as such things are concerned? So here he is, and this is the typical thing where people are mistaken, quite rightly, I understand that, is that God formed the heaven and nothing ever changes. That, it's just like with the Bible, like, well, God communicated the Bible and nothing ever changes. Well, both are wrong, right? The communications from Jesus and the spirits are of a dynamic quality, and they tell us things as we have the maturity socially and technologically to understand what they're telling us. And the same thing with heaven. In heaven, there are spirits, they create homes, they create cities, there's changes to the environment. Things are dynamic because spirits are working on them. Let's see what he says. To answer your last question first, he said, heaven is not at present a perfect place. I know, such is the earth idea, but it is unscriptural and has not a shadow of justification in the teachings of Jesus, who told his disciples, I go to prepare a place for you, which very truth implies imperfection, because unprepared. On the other hand, this life is one in which every power finds full employ. The poet is capable of receiving higher inspirations, but of what avail if he may not write them? Did the talents of Raphael, Angelical, or Turner only unfold for the momentary span of earth's uncongenial day? Do you think that the dreams of beauty and grace which are here begat of the genius of Phidias or Michelangelo are to be condemned to lie imprisoned in the sanctuary of their own conception? Where are the mighty architects who built Thebes and Babylon, Jerusalem, Athens, and Rome? Have such mind no inspirations when they behold the sights, the capabilities, and the resources of immortality? Are Handel, Mozart, and Beethoven tired of harmony, or have they drained the fount of music dry? One recoils from the thought of what heaven would be without the active employment of such great minds as these. So what he's telling us is life doesn't stop after you're dead, right? If you're a builder, if you're an architect, whatever you are, you can still continue what you like to do. You can still continue to create. If you're an author, you can still write. If you're a sculptor, you can still sculpt. All these things you can still do. And you make a difference in heaven, because heaven is always growing and always changing and always trending, I should say, towards perfection as more and more people rise. So this is where the idea that heaven is some sort of static Elysium fields where every tree and every leaf is perfect, and you live on this thing. Imagine what it would be if you had to live in a place where you could never move the furniture around. Nothing ever decays, so you never repaint. You couldn't change anything forever. That would be hell, as spirits told Allan Kardec. In the spirits book, it says, "Well, is heaven perfect?" And he goes, "No, heaven is as you in the physical world think of it would be hell. Because what would we be doing? Nothing all day, singing hymns? No, people have to work. People have to be busy. People think of themselves. People go out with friends. People have parties. People go be entertained. All that happens in the spirit world." Let me carry on. "Let me ask you also, has not the gardener some idea to consummate, and shall he be deterred from giving scope to his genius, where it may be displayed free from the unpropitious influences against which he had to contend on earth? Music and painting and sculpture and architecture have had their plotters and toilers, those who have lived and died unsuccessful and unappreciated, and heaven's compensation is to be found in the realization of their hopes. Yes, my friend, there is room for work here, but what makes all the difference, there is no toil or labor. Our only incentive to work is love, not to earn an existence, but to produce an outward semblance of that which is born within and which prompts and forms the mainspring of our activity." So here's the question. So a good place to stop. Does Spiritism believe that there will be the destruction of darker entities that are unable to accept love? Do they believe in the lake of fire? So let's talk about that for a second. So what Spiritism believes is that there is no hell as far as eternal damnation. And there are no such thing as demons, that where God made demons or the devil. There's no such thing as the devil. What Spiritism believes is that these are humans who have gone over to very materialistic, criminal, other types of addictions and desires, and that they then, by the law of affinity, they conjugate together. And so how the spirit world fights evil is they use evil to fight evil. So if you're a horrible person that takes advantage of others, like to dominate others for your own delight, well, guess what? You go down into the lower depths, and it could be close to the lake of fire, right? Everyone has their own purgatory, let's say. And they could be physically hurt by if they think that's true. And but what will happen is they will be placed with others like them. So if you're one of these people who are mean, you'll be with other people who are mean and want to dominate and take advantage of you. So these people will not be destroyed. They will at some time look to the light, and they will then ask for forgiveness and ask for help out of where they are. That will take a long journey for them. It's not an easy journey, but they will have a journey out. So everyone, now Spiritism has said there have been people in these lower zones they call the dark abyss, but you can consider purgatory, if that's a better word for you, been for 10,000 years. And there are a group of like mean lords, they call them the dragons, right? That kind of loosely organized. It's more like a mafia. It's not like there's not like one central government, not like there's one Satan, because there's no Satan, there's no permanent demon. But these are, and they actively work to corrupt people on Earth, to retard the progress of Earth, to not have it become a planet of regeneration. Because once we become a planet of regeneration, these inferior spirits around the earth, who's been given many chances to become better people, will be shunted to another planet, because the planet of regeneration won't have inferior spirits around us. That's why a planet of regeneration is such a great place, because you won't have these negative inspirations and negative thoughts. So they will accept love at some point. And so Do they believe in the lake of fire? It depends on which person. If they believe that and believe that they were wrong, they would, but that's individual, right? Because you kind of go to the place where the law of affinity places you, and where you, and they want you there, right? Because this will help you learn. You're not placed into purgatory, the dark abyss, the Spiritism calls it, to punish you. You're placed there to edify you, but it's a tough lesson because you're with other people like yourself. And if you took advantage of others, they'll take advantage of you. So that's why you never worry about anybody getting away with anything, because karma takes care of it. Karma doesn't just work on the physical world. Karma just doesn't work where you do something bad in one life and the next life you have to atone for it, which is still true. But karma works the fact that if you're a criminal and you've done much harm, you're going to go to a pretty terrible place. Let me give you an example. There was this one city in one of these books I was reading. The spirit went down into these lower cities, and there was this person who was a Roman emperor. And the guy says, "Well, was that Nero?" He goes, "No, that's another Roman emperor, but he has Nero as his personal footstool." So he's there torturing Nero. Of course, Nero's the one burnt alive Christians, put them in the circus, etc. So Nero is down there. Guy's been down there what? Almost 2,000 years, less. But I forgot what year he was. It was 80 or something like that, or 50 AD. Can't remember. But anyway, he's been there for almost 2,000 years in a very bad place. And as this dominant form, I don't know what Roman emperor was. Could have been like someone like Tiberius or someone who was also mean. But God bless them. I hope they get out of there by now. So everyone always has. There's no last chance for anyone. But yeah, so there's bad things there. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And if you read people's NDEs, if people went below instead of up, they'll tell you. And everyone has different views of what they saw, because there's all sorts of different lands and different worlds and different circumstances. Like in heaven, there's different cities and different levels. There's a great variation. Okay. Okay, so this is what he says. He says that what makes all the difference is no toil or labor. Our only incentive to work is love. Okay, so I said that before. So it is, what he's saying is that an outward semblance of that which is born within. So what he's saying, without saying the exact words, is thought is action. He's telling them, no, there's no labor. There's only what's inside of you, and it comes out of you. But of course, Fred, who I call our spirit, and they've talked to him, and someone's called him that name, so I use that name. He goes, I was silent, but my mind grew heavy with the thoughts it carried, because he hasn't quite grasped this idea. The one object that attracted my attention more than any other was the palace or mansion occupying the island, with which I was informed was the home of the Assyrian. An announcement caused me some amusement at first, as the idea of it being a residence of any kind would have been the last to enter my mind. So, the Assyrian, if he was I'm sure he is a high spirit, but let's just say any spirit is a high spirit, can create their own palace or mansion, and can create the environment, the atmosphere, the rivers, the lakes, the islands, wherever he wants. If he wants to be next to a big ocean, he can create his own ship that will be propelled by his mind, right? If you have sails, he could will the wind to blow it, or he could just will it forward. So this is the power you have. So think about this. This is the power a high spirit has to create a palace and a mansion in this beautiful area, right? That looks like like a Garden of Eden, as we would think. This is why you're on Earth, because in order to create and develop and work with other people to fashion these beautiful edifices, you need mental discipline. And what mental discipline is not only focus, but it's also to take out your primitive emotions, hate, envy, jealousy, and replace them with love, fraternity, charity, and honesty. Okay, let me carry on. My first and instinctive conception of it was a vast floral pyramid built in a range as a central and finishing effect in a charming valley. The base of the building was perhaps more than a quarter mile in extent, but the gradual elevation of the ground from the water's edge gave it the appearance, from the point at which I first beheld it, of being considerably greater proportions than it was in reality. It was not until we had crossed one of the picturesque bridges which formed the approach that I could entirely divest my mind of my original idea. For the presence of the number of people who were visible was quite as consistent with the one explanation as the other. But when ascending from the river, my eye began to penetrate the foliage. I could then discern the architectural arrangement by which the pleasing and novel effect was produced. Each story, of which there were 10, was so constructed to leave a terrace of some 30 feet in width around the whole building, the outer edges being planted with beds of flowers and shrubs, and finally palms and other trees whose branches made a stately promenade, almost like the hanging, as someone would visualize the hanging gardens of Babylon. My undivided attention, however, could not be given to the building, for Krishna had already communicated our approach to Siamedes, who came to meet and welcome us as we crossed the bridge. We were also objects of curiosity to numbers of others, who, I was informed, were anxious to learn who the newcomer might be, and whether it might be possible I was the bearer of news from friends still on earth. I found that this was one. Oh, let me get this. So here. Would these edifices be built by labor or more like a holograph by mathematical and or engineering methods? So, and this is why I recommend people to read my book, The Spirit Realm, and also read my book, Heaven and Below, book 1 of Spiritism, and Spirits and Spirit Universe, because I really explain how all these things are created. And I give examples of how these are created. But, so everything is created by what? By first is the focus of your willpower and using universal fluid, which is the headwaters of everything in the physical and spirit universe of how it's created, massing universal fluid in different vibrations and different spirals and harmony, and then creating by your mind that building or whatever. Let me give you an example. Jivao's mother, who was in heaven, and she said, she was on one of the first levels of heaven. She told her son, Reverend Jivao, in the early 20th century, she says, I was at a class and we were learning how to create with our minds. And we had a group of us, and they said, okay, on this pedestal, create a statue of an elephant. And so they all got together and they concentrated with their minds of creating an elephant. Now, she said it was pretty funny because it was like some of the elephant, the sizes was different. Some looked like it was real flesh. Some looked like it was made out of bronze or metal. It was kind of half between an Indian and an African elephant. And it goes, and there was a series of dials where we could see how we were adjusting and how we were composing universal fluid to create this into our mind. So this is just a group just learning, just like a kid takes Legos and starts building things, right? Then they tried something else, and this time they got a little bit smarter, and they got together and they planned out what they wanted to do beforehand, and then they did a much better job. And again, this is how buildings. I talk about how what a group of spirits will do, and they will create, and they'll create a model. First, they'll mentally create a model of what they're building, and then they will have people together, and they will kind of create the outside, and then they'll bring in high spirits and say, oh, okay, how's that look? Now it's a little bit off here, and that guy or woman will help them rearrange or make things more symmetrical, and then they'll keep finishing it, and they'll bring another high spirit in, and they'll look at it and go, okay, let's kind of set this in foundation, and she or he will kind of set it in foundation for them. So that is that's remarkable, isn't it? So that's what is awaiting for you. You'll learn how to do this if you want. Now, you can be as lazy as you want in heaven, as long as you're a good person. You can sit around, do nothing until you're ready. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to learn things. You have free will. You can even walk down into the lower zone if that's what you want. Okay. Let me go on. So where was I? Oh, okay. I found that this is one of the numbers of homes where the souls of those who are wearied in well doing and have fought and come off more than conquerors might rest a while and be ministered to in order that they may enter upon the joys of heaven with all their energies revived and strengthened, so as to be able to fully appreciate those glories which further awaited them. So again, they have this is a probably a reward, just like why this is why this spirit is here, because it's for the people who've done as well as they can on earth. They'll say, okay, this has been a tough trial for you. Come here, let's uh, gather your strength. Now, even they even do this. They have uh, temples, and they have kind of like spas for people, for spirits that go in down to the earth, and sometimes on physical earth, sometimes down in the lower zones of the dark abyss, as they're helping other spirits rise and learn. And because it's stressful, it's hard for them, even spirits. And they will then go back, and then they'll get water therapy, they'll get music therapy, they will have they'll get their energies uh, bolstered, they'll be re-energized. Okay, so then he says, here they grow strong when the vibrations of the conflict pass away, experiencing the peace of the eternal hush after the storm, enjoying the relief of throwing off the armor, and enter upon the liberty of repose, never again to be broken. I was told that the condition of individuals varies considerably at such times, but that generally they are limited in their knowledge of what transpires on Earth, and for this reason watch new arrivals for information. And probably they're limited because they don't want to stress them out, because at that point they are trying to divorce them from worrying about Earth. And this is what the spirits told the Reverend Zivaoan is like the first three levels. And of course, the numbering system is different for everybody. They use 1 through 10, but some people use 1 through 7, some people use 1 through 3, whatever. But the first levels, people still are tied to Earth, and they follow their families, and they just agonize over what's happening to their families, or they agonize over what's happening to their country or political party they like, all of that. But as you get higher and higher, you learn that it's all just a learning experience. Yes, they still love the family that's on Earth, but they know that this is a temporary thing. They know that their son or daughter, or brother or sister or parents are immortal, and they're going through an edifying experience with almost every event in their life predetermined, and that whatever choice they make in their free will choices during that event is always going to be a learning experience. Some not too good, but some really good and some edifying for them. And so they don't worry about it. They don't obsess over, like, oh my God, she failed that test, or oh, he got in this car accident, and now it's going to cost him a bunch of money, and he's not making enough money. It's all, as people get higher and higher spiritually, and this is why I think doing Spiritism is good for us here physically on Earth. You learn that these aren't that important. The important part is rearranging right what is in your head, is rewiring your brain to not allow primitive emotions just to flood out when someone makes you mad, right? And I'm still working on that. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but you can get better. You can be more calm in every situation. You can be happier because, hey, here you are. There's nothing you can do about it. You're on Earth. You're in this physical dense body. You've got emotions and stimuli hitting you all the time. You might as well go for the ride. It's like you get in a ride at Disney World or Disneyland or any other park, and you're being, on a roller coaster, being put left and right and up and down, and there's nothing you can do, and you just kind of enjoy the ride. Well, that's how you need to be in the physical life. You just might as well enjoy the ride and go, oh, that terrible thing happened to me. I wonder what I did wrong, right? Or, oh, that's interesting. And, so divorce yourself from this physical body and start learning, like, how to take things in context. As you are an immortal spirit, you cannot die. You cannot die. In the spirit world, you are never sick. Whatever you are sick with, whatever state you are in, whatever you look like, you think that you're ugly or beautiful or whatever, all that's temporary. Your physical body's gone, your house is gone, your car is gone, whatever country that you really love, that's all going to be gone. What's all it's only going to be there is what's in your mind. Okay, let me carry on. Simedes was not attired as I saw him at the corral. That's where he cured a lot of people. But had assumed a loosely flowing robe of electric gray, over which alternate blushes of pink and blue seemed to beat like pulse throbs. But he was not the less regal in appearance. The first time I met him, he was arrayed in the robes of state. Now he was the monarch at home. But oh, what a conception of royalty I formed as I watched this subsidiary ruler of the kings of kings. The diadem he wore was one of service, while the scepter he swayed radiated in influence, in the presence of which revolt and treachery would have been annihilated. The gems with which it set excited no greed or avarice, while it was wielded not with the mandate of destruction, but a command to live. The hand of the tyrant or the oppressor could not grasp it, neither could the stain of blood ever touch it, for the emblem of the rule divine has come from the hands of God, who himself engraved upon it the name of love. Now, when he talks about the diadem and you know how he's dressed, this is exactly what you hear from other spirits talking to spiritist mediums. And in fact, the spirits say if you look at the color of the stone, and you look at the color of the robes, you kind of can tell what service area they're in and their rank. Interesting, is it not? It's like the chevrons on the arm of soldiers, right? As I looked upon him, I was involuntarily drawn towards him. When he threw his arms tenderly around me and we walked forward, I, at last, being perfectly happy and contented. How could I be otherwise? I was beginning to grow accustomed to the great advantages I had inherited in this new life, which was void of any time limit, and as page after page was turned over, I could see how occupations were provided to engage my soul through the long eternities which lay before me. The old visionary and inane heaven had passed away, and in its place had been discovered a rest which would be an employment, a worship which was an enfoldment, an apotheosis that is only to be reached by the expansion of the divinity, which, although unknown, has always lain buried within myself. So he's always had wanted to do good, always had wanted to be of service. And he had this concept of heaven where nothing is service, everything's perfect. And what would he be doing in heaven? But now he's excited to be in heaven because he knows he has a purpose. He has things he wants to do. He can't wait to get them done, although he's learning patience. We all have to learn that even in the spirit world. And he's excited to know that there's this, and that as he rises, he has the power to do more and more to help other people. I'll carry on. We sauntered along. Why not? I stood on the shores of the eternal sea, and every step had its myriad of grains, each with a special revelation to make. Every person we met had a different life story to tell, and I had nothing to do but learn. Now, we spoke to one who just awoke to understand the change that had taken place, and I could study the same bewilderment in another, which I experienced under somewhat similar circumstances. Anon, we watched one, whose probationary rest being over, was looking away in the direction from which the friends were expected, who would escort her to the place prepared for her. Every incident had its own peculiar interest and charm as it discovered the methods of God in dealing with the sons of men on earth and leading the blind by the way they know not. So, again, this is typical, though. People who are newly passed over from the physical life, they go through a period of fuzziness, which is completely, normal. Until because they are who they are when they die, and they still have all the foundations and the cultural expectations of the physical world, but now they're dealing with something completely different, and they haven't quite got their memory back from their past life. Some it takes a while because you're not allowed that till you're mature enough to handle that, right? Because your past life could be pretty bad. And so it's like when Chico asked his mother, when his sister died. His sister was she was a wonderful spiritist, like the most remarkable person on earth. While he lived from 1910 to 2002. That he said, oh, and but his sister was a Catholic, always was a Catholic. He goes, well, how's my sister? He goes, oh, after she died, she went to like a Catholic colony. They're going to let her rest as long as she needs. They're going to get her all, healthy and organized and oriented. He goes, oh, he goes, but mother, he goes, what did they do with spiritists when they pass over? He goes, oh, with spiritists, they put them to work right away. So I thought, so that's the downside of being a spiritist. Since you've been told, and hopefully you've read what heaven is and what's expected of you, you should hit the ground running. I'm sure they'll give you some rest. Okay. Our conversation with these friends, I at length remarked, the Siamedes, gives me the impression that you do not hold chorales here. Is that correct? Yes. My visitors and chorales are when he cured a bunch of people who had come from the lower zone and bad places. Yes, my visitors are the opposite of those you saw at the home of rest and need very different ministrations. They were victims who succumbed against their better nature to creole intolerance. They were overpowered while struggling to get free. These, the people meaning at his mansion, his palace, are conquerors who, following the teachings and example of Jesus, have worked out their own salvation in spite of creed. In spite. Because many things, right? Many things, if you read the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, literally, can be, against the teachings of Spiritism. Is love for all, tolerance, and as spirits have told us, right, the teachings of love and charity and fraternity in the Bible, New and Old Testament, are eternal. The rest was given to people at the time and level of culture in which they were at. Because after all, if the doctrine of Spiritism was exposed to the people of the Jewish state at the time, no matter the Gentiles or anybody who was there, they would have said, what the heck is this? Right? They wouldn't even understand it, and they would not have accepted it. So they can only get people. You can't force people. You can't force a 5-year-old to learn calculus. You've got to step them up, and that's what we've been doing as a collective humanity. Okay. Then he asked, then perhaps you can answer me a question which puzzled me many times in the old life. I will, if possible, he replied kindly. Which of all the denominations or religions, if you will, contribute the highest percentage of the redeemed? Okay, so this is good. So let's listen to his answer. We recognize but one religion here, that is love, and all its disciples have but one denomination, lovers of mankind. No one of all the man-made religions holds a monopoly of this attribute, but earnest and conscientious followers of it may be found in all. Its worship is service to humanity, its litany, noble deeds, its prayers, tears of sympathy, its sermons, simple lives, known and read of all men. Its songs are lullabies to soothe the brokenhearted, the faith, the immolation of self, and its hope, heaven. This is the only religion which can write the passports of heaven for the pilgrims of earth. So, there's no things you can't eat or must eat, things you must wear or can't wear. There's no baptism or not baptism. It's yourself. You are the architect. You are the sculpture of your own body and your own mind, more importantly, I should say, to enter heaven. And the more you work on your own internal ratiocination processes, meaning the way you think, the way you react, the way you treat other people, right? That is the key of of transforming yourself. That's exactly what he said. Transform yourself to get to heaven. And, look, everyone has to work. Everyone has to put shelter. Everyone has to feed their family. But you have to put that in perspective. You don't have to work 80 hours a week so you can have that second vacation home or that yacht, and you don't have to buy back your old stock, your own stock in your own corporation, just so you and your friends can make more money. You don't have to sell the company for billions of dollars so you can go, buy an island somewhere. That's not going to help you get anywhere. It's going to be fun for the first few years, right? I'm not going to take that away from you. But a few years compared to growth and preparation for eternity, I don't think there's a contest between that. And I understand why people say, "Well, I haven't seen heaven. I see no proof of heaven. I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to go what I want to right now." And that's fine. If that's what you believe. There's no problem with that. If you're still a nice person and you want to prioritize your earthly goods, but you're still a nice person, you'll probably still get into heaven, but you won't make as much as progress as you could have. Or if you don't even make it to heaven, there's some other lives you will. There's no eternal mistake. God and Jesus is just. They know that we're like kids. If there's a decision to make, it's like 80% of the time you're wrong. And just remember when you were a child, every decision you made was the wrong one. It was invariable, right? So that's why they love us. They love us. I mean, it's like they love you like only a mother or father can love their children, right? Because you just love them no matter how many stupid things they do. And they love us, but there is a process, and it's called karma. So when we do something wrong, we ourselves know that we have to atone for it. And that's why some people who seemingly are wonderful people on earth and they have terrible things happen to them, they go, "Well, God's not just. Something terrible happened to that person." Well, they planned that. They planned that in atonement for something they'd done in a past life. Okay, let me carry on. This is the only religion which can write the passports of heaven for the pilgrims of earth. Systems of theology have no more charm for us here than they had on earth. But in every heart there is a latent ideal towards which all mankind is blindly reaching out, a vague and undefined hope to which all nations are ignorantly aspiring, a settlement of political problems which are only just beyond the reach of statesmen, a method of internal arbitration by which peace shall reign on earth. These are all generating in the womb of futurity. And how near that future is. How soon might all be accomplished. If only systematic theology could be cleared away and simple-minded souls could raise a true standard of the cross, that all the world might see and recognize that every difficulty would be overcome, every problem solved, and every ideal attained in Jesus. Now, this reminds me of an interesting passage in what a spirit told the Reverend G. Val Owen. And they went through the history of saying, look, in the history of governments that were men, and I mean male men, have been in charge, and they've improved, right? They're not as barbaric or mean to each other, and they've tried to bring Christian ideals into their countries and into their democracies or whatever they are, into their government. It's far from ideal. And what this spirit said, the future is going to be where women will come up and they will, he said, look, I don't want to use the word lead, but they will guide. And they will guide with men, and they will guide with love, and they will guide with that feminine aspect of love and caring. He goes, not like, and he would say, not like women are now and will be in the short future, where they are trying to be like men. And to me, it's like saying, is say, well, there should be as many women in charge of businesses and on boards of boards of companies as men. And yeah, I understand that. But what I think I would like, and I don't know anybody else, but this is my own opinion, and please tell me wrong, is I would like as something superior to come along. And because right now we have just as many horrible CEOs, men who take advantage of their workers, buy their own stock back, become rich, and then leave, and they don't give a to anybody. And women are doing the same. Is that progress? Where now we just have a bigger pool of psychopaths trying to squeeze every little ounce of blood out of us? Is that progress? No, but it's a stage that I think everyone has to go through to find out that that's not what's going to solve the problem. It's really adopting the Spiritist doctrines and having uh, the feminine side help guide good decisions and help think of employees as people to help. And maybe someone's incompetent in one section, but they could be good if they were either trained or moved somewhere else. Not just so, oh, okay, you're the bottom 10%, because I've been in companies like that where I've been told you have to fire the bottom 10%. I hated that. That's when I got out of management. And it's like, no, that 10% could be great. They just haven't maybe they're doing a job that no one else wants, or maybe they should be doing a different job. Why are you firing them? Just to scare everyone else? I just hated that. I hated that. Hate's too strong a word. I did, but anyway. But these are things that the Spirit, who talked to Reverend Duval and said that women would help guide society to become, this is in the future, to become a much more loving and embracing and helpful society to everybody. So anyway, I went off on that tangent, but this is why I read this, so I can go off on these tangents. We were by this time passing through a magnificent vestibule, leading evidently to the courtyard or garden, which I could see in the distance. From either side of us ran corridors. It's probably inside of this pyramid structure now, out of which apparently innumerable apartments opened, and here I had a splendid opportunity for noticing the self-luminous atmosphere to which I have alluded before. In the very center of so vast a vestibule, one would naturally expect to find an almost midnight gloom, yet neither here nor in the corridors adjacent could there be detected the slightest indication of a shadow. Staircases of stately proportions rose at intervals to the terraces above, and on all of which, whatever faculty offered, were found trees, plants, and flowers, and more than oriental luxuriance, interspersed with statuary and tapestries which baffle all attempts at description. Again, this corresponds to what spirits have told us through spiritist mediums, that light is there, right? There's not like a sun coming from a certain angle in the sky creating shadows. It's just everything's light. You're always in a comfortable temperature, but I don't know, 75, 78, I don't know, whatever temperature is comfortable for you, that's how you feel. And there's light. Now, in the lower sections of heaven, night and day comes, and it's like it corresponds to the area of where you're over. So if you're in No Solar, which is a spiritual city on top of Rio, the night and day will correspond to the hours there. If you're in some place, let's say he is above London, the night and day will correspond there. But as you go higher and higher, all that's gone. Because you don't sleep as you go. You may sleep when you're lowers in the lower levels of heaven because you feel like you want to. But as you go higher and higher, you don't need sleep. You don't really need food. Food. You can drink water and take sustenance from the light. On reaching the courtyard, I had once discovered the reason of its being selected as the starting point of my inspection of the palace. In the center stood, or played, I hardly know how to describe it, a unique aqua botanical marble which was at once both tree and fountain. From a coral-tinted basin, it rose in a huge body of water, some 4 or 5 feet in diameter, as if passing through a transparent conduit. At the height of 15 feet, its branches began to reach out in every direction, each of which was luxuriant with its triple burden of ever-changing leaf and flower and fruit. I say ever-changing because no sooner had leaf or flower or fruit reached full development than by some mysterious power it was severed from the tree, as though gathered by unseen hands, and carried into one of the other multitude of apartments which completely surrounded us. It was an object lesson in the process of nature, the mighty forces which were visibly operating before my eyes. I gazed upon the sight in amazement, almost all and at the same time marveled to what use the products of this wonderful tree were applied. So again, the process of nature, what he said, is not really correct. This fountain and tree was developed by people's logic. And this is where health helps give you an idea of the spirit universe. This tree was developed by people creating this tree, creating how the flowers, and they created a logical process that when a flower or a fruit that would automatically go from the tree to apartment X. They would connect it by program by in their focus. They would create from universal fluid, and then they would program what they wanted this thing to do. There was this another story of these people created this building. It was going to be kind of like the chief of the city's building, but it was also going to be kind of a administrative center. And when they built this model, what they wanted administrative center to be, they built a small model of it, and they put it in the park. And a spirit could go to that model, and they could peer into it and see who they wanted to meet. And by looking into the model, they knew what room they were at. They knew if they had a meeting in a certain room, and they knew if that person was there or not there. Now, you can do this with our technology now. You can have sensors everywhere in that office building, and then it goes there and it shows you who's there in what room. But it would take an immense amount of programming, dynamic power. I mean, there'd be a lot of work to create a system like that. But this was created by a group of people who did this whole thing. So think what that means. Think of the complexity of what people create with their minds and how they know to take probably pre-created programming modules, use them in different methods. And now you know why there's a lot to learn in heaven and why there's so many great things in there. I carry on. As if to answer me, Simedes stopped and gathered 2 or 3 of the leaves which had fallen at our feet. In color, they were of a pale, bright, almost emerald green, while to the touch they were soft and velvety. When I had thoroughly examined them, my companion closed his hand upon them, and as they were pressed, I was conscious of a very soft and delicate odor, producing a marked and exhilarating effect upon me. Then he opened his hand, upon which there was left just a trace of moisture, but no sign of the leaves remained. A smile passed across his features as he beheld my astonishment, and proceeded to explain the singular phenomenon. This, he said, is the tree and also the water of life, so necessary to restore the weary and recuperate the exhaustions of those who come here to rest. It forms the method of reinvigoration, which is the equivalent of the chorale. The stream which supplies and energizes the tree, as also many other and similar homes, is the strongest and richest of what we have any idea. We are told it takes its rise in the vicinity of the throne of God, for it never varies in the constancy of its flow. So I'll stop there and I'll restart this page 15 when I come back, because we are at the end of our time and I don't want to go too far. And so this was probably created by higher spirits for him, and they created this wonderful fountain that made things smell good and made people happy. And interestingly, high spirits smell good, right? Mediums, when they feel they're in the presence of a high spirit, will smell this. They'll call it a floral, but it's like a floral smell that like better than they've ever smelled before. When I was in a spiritualist healing center, the guy who healed afterwards, he'd come out and he'd take like a woman's scarf, and then he would, and it was like you could feel spirits all around him. He would take it, he'd kind of crumple it a bit, kind of go like this, and then he'd give it back to the woman and said, "Smell it," and she'd smell it. It would just smell like, it smelled wonderful. I got to smell it one time. It was just wonderful smell. I wish you could bottle that smell. It's just a smooth, fulfilling, calming smell. And that was the power of the spirits through him to impart this odor onto this scarf or whatever object that they wanted to do. So sometimes if you are a medium and you feel a spirit and then you smell something good, then a lot of times that will be a sign that it is a higher spirit around you. And the opposite applies too. If you smell like an odor that doesn't smell good, that is a lower spirit. So it's all very interesting. right? Now, if you smell like someone comes to you and you smell cigarettes, like we had one lady say, I smelled cigarettes. That's probably a spirit that is a spirit on earth, wandering around earth and still retains what he was used to, which is smoking cigars or cigarettes or whatever. That's just probably, don't know exactly what, if they're nice or malignant or malevolent, I should say, what type of spirit they are, but they're certainly not a high spirit. Okay, so we will carry on this chapter. This chapter takes, I think, yeah, 2 times. Part 2 will be next week on Tuesday, and I like to remind everybody that that we are live stream every Sundays. I'm sorry, yeah, Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. And if you are interested in what I'm talking about, I suggest you read The Spirit Realm. Spiritism has revealed the reality of our existence. It will go more into the logical explanations. It will show you the power of the spirits, what you are as a spirit, how you grow as a spirit, what you can do here on earth. And of course, I have a lot of other books on my site, nwspiritism.com, which I believe should, a lot of free articles on there. Talk about NDEs. They talk about reincarnation, destiny, um, life in heaven, all that, which should be interesting for you. So anyway, I want to say God bless everyone and good night.